I just launched 2 Airbnbs and I decided to conduct a little experiment. I thought, why not go back to basics and manage them manually? Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I always preach, do the job yourself before hiring it out. And after many years of saying this, I wanted to put my philosophy to the test and really decide if I still actually believe that. And spoiler alert, after managing these properties manually over the last month, I was wrong. Managing them manually was a disaster. Missed responses, late responses, scheduling chaos, you name it, I missed it or I messed it up. And if I, Rob Abasolo, Built, the guy that's pretty good at Airbnb, if I mess things up by manually managing my Airbnb, if you're not automating your Airbnb, then chances are that you probably are also letting things fall through the cracks, whether you know it or not. And so what I wanted to do on today's episode of Rob Built was create a guide, a mini masterclass on automating your business and teach you why it's crucial if you're serious about running a smooth operation or scaling your portfolio. We're gonna get into that and so much more in today's episode of Rob Built. It's like, where does he walk? There's nowhere here. There's not that much space over here. Oh, and by the way, this video is brought to you by Guesty. More on them in a bit, but for now, let's get into it. So let's talk about the one thing that every single Airbnb host without question needs to master, and it's automation. The idea of setting your Airbnb on autopilot. So having automated my listings for the past 6-7 years to going to manually managing the last 2 that I just launched, I wanted to break down the pillars of automation that I missed the most. Things that I took for granted that really improve the quality of my hosting life. But please understand, there are hundreds of ways to automate your Airbnb business, and I'm gonna take you through my top 5, but I would say that these 5 categories cut down about 80% of my workload on a day-to-day basis. I'm gonna walk you through each one and then give you an accompanying tip or insight for each category. The first category that you can really streamline and automate is your communication and your messaging. The big thing here is that your automated messaging keeps your communication flawless. And this is really the concept of preloading your templates into your property management system and then scheduling your messages ahead of time so that you don't ever have to actually send out a message. The reason this is so important to automate is because there are just so many messages that are gonna go out on any given month. And then let's just math out how many messages you're gonna be sending out. So on any given stay, I'm probably gonna send out between 4 and 6 messages. Let's take 5 as the average of that. And on any given month, I'm gonna be hosting between 5 to 7 sets of people. We'll take the average of that, which is 6. At a minimum, I am gonna be sending out 30 messages every single month with 1 listing. Now imagine that you're a host that has scaled to 5. Well, now you're sending out 150 messages a month, or 10, 300 messages a month. Or if you're like me, I don't know, a lot. I'll math it out, hold on, 40 times, just give me a second. Okay, 1,200 messages. We're sending out 1,200 messages, my personal portfolio, every single month. No matter how good you are, it's impossible for you to get all of those messages out manually. It just can't be done. You're gonna forget. I had 2 properties this month that I was in charge of, and guess what? I missed a few. So out the gate, this is one task that you can really chop out of your life. I'm just gonna give you a quick list of all the messages that I send out. I send out a booking confirmation when someone books a stay. I send out a pre-check-in message that gives guests all the information they need to check into their property. I send them a message the day after they check in, and I say, hey, how was your stay? Is there anything I can help you with? And then I send them a checkout message the day before they check out saying, hey, here are your checkout instructions. Don't forget to rake my house, don't forget to paint my house, don't forget to re-roof my house, all that good stuff. And then the last message, a few days after they check out, I say, hey, if you enjoyed your stay, would you mind leaving me a 5-star review? And there are a few customizations here and there with those, but for the most part, that covers everything. Just doing this alone will make your life so much easier. I talked about the review and sending out a message asking for the review. Well, that kind of leads me into number 2 here, which is reviews and getting more 5-star reviews for your property. See, whether you realize it or not, 5-star reviews are kind of the lifeblood or the backbone of your property. People are gonna book your property based on the reviews that they read about it. And if you don't have a lot of 5-star reviews, then you don't have what's called social proof. Meaning if someone is comparing you to a very similar listing down the road, and that listing has way more 5-star reviews than you, if you guys are apples to apples, the same property, the one with more reviews is gonna get booked. So the tip here is to ask for a review. Most people actually really enjoy staying at your property. They have every intention of leaving you a great review, but guess what? They get in the car with their kids start screaming, they go home, they gotta catch up to work, they have to get the dog from boarding, and just life gets in the way and they totally forget to leave you a review, no matter how much they loved your property. How many times have you been at Home Depot where the associate was actually super helpful, and then they're like, hey, by the way, would you mind leaving a review saying how helpful I was to you? And you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'll do that as soon as I get home. And then you get home and you crumple the receipt and you throw it away and you're like, oh my gosh. And then you realize that you didn't actually do the thing that would help out Dave and help him get a raise, and you're like, man, am I a bad person? But at that point, it doesn't matter because you threw away the receipt. That's kind of how it is with Airbnb guests, because they really only have 14 days to review you. On that 15th day, they can no longer review you. And I've had so many people reach out on week 3 or 4 and say, oh my gosh, I forgot to leave you a review. I'll do that right now, and realize that they can't. So asking for a review is super important. I guess that's the moral of the story. And just by simply asking, you are gonna be increasing the chances or the likelihood of you getting reviews by like 50% at a minimum, in my opinion. You can just automate this. This is just a setting that you can put into your automated messaging that asks your guests for a review. And this is actually something that you'll never have to request again. So my tip here is ask for the review, because it's gonna increase the likelihood of you getting it. And you know what? My other tip is ask for a 5-star review. Hey, if you enjoyed your stay, would you mind leaving me a 5-star review? I'm a small business and every little bit helps. If you ask for a 5-star review, they'll feel bad giving you anything less, and if they were gonna give you something less, they probably won't even leave a review. Let's take a quick sidebar here to talk about how you actually implement the automation stuff that I'm talking about in today's video. And the short answer is you need a good property management system to help you do that, which is why I'm excited to talk about today's sponsor, Guesty. Guesty is a platform that allows you to automate all aspects of your short-term rental business, from automating your messages to automating the coordination with your cleaning crew, and you can even automate things like leaving reviews and your pricing. You can do all of this through Guesty. The cool thing about Guesty is that you have options depending on what portfolio size you have. There's Guesty Lite if you have just a few properties, and if you're a scaling host with more than 3 properties, or you're like me and you have 40 properties plus, then you may consider Guesty for pros. But regardless, no matter where you are in your journey, you can automate all of it, and you can do it all through Guesty. So if you want to learn more about their platforms, their tools, and all of the other really cool ways that you can streamline your business that we didn't even cover today, then you can head on over to Guesty.com to learn more. And by the way, before I wrap this up, I do want to say that I've been a Guesty user for many years. I think I've been hosting now for 7-8 years. And of those 7-8 years, I think I've been a Guesty user for 6 of them. Actually, I've been a Guesty user since before they were Guesty. I was actually a user when they were, which I don't even know if I'm supposed to say that, because they're probably like, don't ever say that word, just say Guesty. But that's how you know that I'm OG. Okay, back to more automation. Let's get into category number 3, which is pretty similar, but it is distinctly different, and it is leaving reviews. So category number 2 was getting them. Tip number 3 is leaving reviews. Back in the day, I used to spend an hour or so going through and leaving reviews for everybody, and saying, yes, Jennifer stayed at my property, and well, I never really got to get to know Jennifer. The way that she spoke to me via text was just so beautifully written. She was a beautiful guest that stayed at my property. I know that it sounds weird that I said that she's beautiful, but what I mean is she's a very good person and I would host her again. Anyways, I used to do that with like all of my guests, dozens and dozens of guests every single month. And it does take a lot of time to do that. Well, what most people don't know is that you can automate that entire function. Good property management systems will have this feature built into them where they have boilerplate reviews that they'll just leave on your behalf. Now, my tip here is that while this is a really awesome feature, if you do want to turn off the auto review feature, if you had a bad or a mad guest, meaning if they left your place super dirty, destroyed it, and your cleaner says, hey, they were not great guests, well, you'd want to actually write a review and warn other hosts of this. If you have a disgruntled guest, let's say that your Wi-Fi didn't work or your hot tub was broken or whatever, people are kind of unreasonable. Well, if you send them a message after they check out saying, hey, did you have a 5-star stay? Please leave me a review. And they're going to be like, you know what? Yes, this was such a beautiful property. I remember checking in and I felt like I really reconnected with my wife. And for the first time in a long time, I looked over at her and I said, she is just a wonderful human. And if it weren't for this property, I never would have remembered that. 2 stars! Next category. 4th category here is gonna be cleaning coordination. And this one's a big one. Doing this with 2 properties over the last month manually, I can tell you that it can consume hours of your life to be texting with your cleaner back and forth. Every time you get a new reservation, texting that cleaner and saying, hey, I got a new reservation. Can you come and clean on this day? And then they're like, great. And then you get another one and you gotta send them another message and say, hey, I got another one. And you have to keep just going back and forth. And let me tell you, no matter how organized you or your cleaner are, you're gonna get lost in the sauce. You just have to, trust me on this, you have to get this one off your plate because texting your cleaner on a daily basis is just not a sustainable way to run your business, but it is most certainly not a sustainable way to grow your business. My tip for this one is get out of texting your cleaner and automate all of your systems so that they just export over to their calendar. As a matter of fact, the way I have it set up is I can actually send text reminders or email reminders, or both, if the cleaner prefers it, straight to them every single time someone checks in, every time someone checks out, and every single time a new reservation comes through. So I never have to actually text with them about when to show up. At this point, the only real communication I have with my cleaners is if there's an issue with cleaning the property, meaning stained sheets or something broke or a hole in the wall. I've seen pretty much everything at this point. No, Johnny, not again. Please. What was I saying? Oh, that's right. Yeah, just sync up your calendar with your cleaner's calendar. Get out of texting. Really only text your cleaners when there's an issue at your property. Okay? Kupish, kupash. Category number 5, dynamic pricing. I know you might be saying, all right, well, that sounds buzzwordy. What does that mean? Dynamic pricing basically is whenever you automate your prices to go up or down based on the supply and demand of your market on any given day. Funny that I was just like, yeah, let me explain this buzzword by giving you more buzzwords. But to boil it down very simply is whenever you're in peak season and there's not that much inventory left on Airbnb, you can use dynamic pricing to say, hey, let's shoot up those prices so that we can get a premium rate. And if you're in the slow season and there's a lot of inventory, then your dynamic pricing says, hey, we should probably lower prices to be very competitive and get booked over everyone else. That's the concept of dynamic pricing. And I think my tip on this one is that a lot of people tend to set and forget dynamic pricing. And this is really the one automation that is gonna impact your revenue more than any other automation, by far. But see, the thing is that dynamic pricing is just one part of the equation. The real 1-2 punch with making more money with this automation is the idea of revenue management. And so really the ideal scenario of how all of this works is you would go and you would set all of your dynamic pricing settings. And this is where most hosts will stop, and then they won't get booked because they're not keeping an eye on their dynamic pricing. They say, hey, it doesn't work. But what you should be doing is going in every single week and every few days and looking at your calendar and identifying all the unbooked blocks in your calendars and understanding why they haven't booked, and going in every single week and changing your nightly minimums from 4 down to 3, down to 2, dropping prices as you get closer to that unbooked day, and really doing this on a very consistent basis. The analogy that I like to think about is if you think about the old school operators where they used to kind of pull all the different cables and plug every hole with a new cable and patch people in, that's how I think about my Airbnb calendar. I see unbooked blocks coming up on my calendar and I say, hey, what do I have to do to get this 3-day block booked? That might mean offering a 50% discount on the first night of that 3-day block, or there's a lot of other little tips and tricks that you can do there. But the idea is you have to be all up in your calendar and changing your dynamic pricing settings several times a week. And the tip here being that automations really are this glorious, beautiful thing sent to us from the robot gods, but they can very easily become a crutch, and you still have to actively manage your automations, AKA you have to manage your robots. Now, I know that some of you are probably thinking, well, if you're automating everything, doesn't that kind of make the hosting aspect of your business feel a little impersonal? And I'd say, no, not really. As a matter of fact, automation gives you more time in your day so that you can focus on making your experiences at your Airbnb better. Instead of being bogged down by repetitive tasks, you can now spend your energy adding those personal touches that make your listing stand out. For example, automating messaging doesn't stop me from responding to unique guest requests. It just ensures that the basics are going to be covered without fail. So how do you know when it's time to invest in a PMS, a property management system? Well, here's a quick checklist. Do you have more than 0 Airbnbs? Check. You should get a property management system. Are you spending more than 5 to 10 hours of your week on hosting tasks? If so, you need a PMS. You want a perfectly oiled machine of a portfolio that is built for scale? Then you're gonna want a property management system. I know I'm obviously biased here, but after manually managing 2 properties over the last month, there's just don't do it. That's all. And like, I don't have a profound statement other than it's just that I genuinely believe, and I know that I don't know you, but I do believe that your time is worth more than the low monthly cost of a PMS. Okay, so what's the final takeaway? Automation isn't just a convenience, it's a necessity. It's gonna save you time, it's gonna reduce your stress, and it's gonna boost your bottom line. I genuinely believe that. And with Guesty, you can make all of that happen effortlessly. And I genuinely say that as someone who has used Guesty for over 5 years now, 6 years. maybe 7. I mean, many, many years. For as long as I've had a property management system, I've been using Guesty. So if you want to take your hosting game to the next level, check them out in the link down below. Big thank you to Guesty for being a supporter of this channel. And if you want to dive even deeper into this world of Airbnb, then I've got a whole course on YouTube that will break down the entire process, and you can watch it right here. It's actually one of my most viewed videos ever. It's a course that many people charge thousands for, but it's free $99 for you. So go watch it here after you like and subscribe. Cool. Okay.